Thank you guys for the patience. It took me a couple of weeks to get this out, but I've been pretty busy shooting some matches. I've had a ton of questions on my win brackets and why I'm coloring them in, as well as a lot of confusion, and rightly so. I went through a lot of iterations on trying to figure this out, and I'm going to attempt to explain it as best as I can. The first concept you need to be aware of is what's called gun number or wind number, wind mile per hour or gun mile per hour. So I've heard this described as the best fit curve for your bullet at that altitude per wind speed. I know from experience that 6 miles an hour at this elevation is my gun number. So I'm going to walk you through how I found that. You could start at 4 miles an hour or 5 or 6, doesn't really matter. What we're looking for is a best fit curve. So I'm just going to use an intervals table of 100 yards. All right, and then I'll slide over to wind drift. At 100, I am roughly zero point 0.1. You see that? At 200, I'm roughly 0.2, 300, 0.3, 400, 0.4, 500, 0.5, 600, 0.6. All right, that'll continue on probably until about 800 yards, and then 9 and 10, it's not as linear anymore, and I need to make a correction. Still out to 800 yards, where I have a mental, easy, full value wind call of 6 miles per hour, and I have a firing solution for it, is a pretty good way to do this. So I start at 6 miles an hour, and then how I create these wind brackets that you see at the top here in 6, 9, and 12 is simply 50% more and then 100% more, right? So half and then double basically is what I'm adding on to that. And that gives me a pretty good window in realistic shooting conditions that I see often. Now, if wind is up above 12 miles an hour, you could continue this. You could make two cards. You could do a 15 and an 18 and, whatever else, right? So go crazy with it. Once you understand this process, you can apply it however you need to yours. What I'm using is Hornady's 4DOF. I think it's pretty good, and it has a great interface to teach on, so that's why I'm using that today. I'm going to change my interval of table to 20 yards, and the reason I'm setting it to 20 is simply because my modern day sniper range card here is graduated in 20-yard increments. If your range card is graduated in 1 yard increments, you could do that, or 100, or anything that you'd like to do. Okay, so back over to wind drift. The reason I'm using wind drift is because it's separated from spin drift. All right, I don't want those things combined, because depending on which way the wind is blowing, see, I see total windage here, I'm already getting some wind, and that's because spin drift is included. Okay, so depending on which way the wind is blowing, I could be having more or less due to spin drift. So I'm just looking for something simple, easy, and fast, and I want to use wind drift by itself. So at 6 miles per hour, we've already established that 200 yards would be 0.2, 300 yards is 0.3, et cetera, et cetera. I want to find a wind bracket that works with my reticle. I'm using the Leupold PR2 reticle that is graduated in 0.25 increments. And so because of that, I chose wind brackets at 0.25 increments. If yours is 0.2, try that. If yours is a half, try that. See how it works. So 200 yards, I have written in blue, actually 180 yards here, but this is all the blue that you see means that I'm holding 0.25. So from 200 yards out to 380, I'm able to hold 0.25 and I'm still on plate. All right, so at 200, I am calling for the wind drift is 0.17. If I hold 0.25 and I only need 0.17, I'm probably still on plate. Now let's scroll down to 380 and check that. It's calling for 0.34, but if I hold 0.25, I'm probably still on plate. Okay, from there, I go to 0.5, and that is in 400 yards. This is my 6 mile an hour column on these yard lines. Here's my 6 mile per hour column on these yard lines. So at 400 yards, I'm picking up at 0.5, and that goes all the way to 620 yards. Here's where I found this. All right, 400 yards. I've got 0.36. That's still pretty close to 0.5. All right, probably inside of my rifle's natural dispersion. So let's check what did I say, 620? All right, so 620 is calling for 0.6. If I'm holding 0.5, but I needed 0.6, I'm probably still on plate. From there, I pick up at 640 yards. 640 is calling for 0.75 of wind. That continues until 840 is what this sheet says. So at 640, I need 0.63. If I hold 0.75, I'm likely still on plate, even though I only needed 0.63. So let's roll to 840. 840 is calling for 0.88. If I need 0.88, but I hold 0.75, I'm likely still on the plate. Obviously, this depends on the size of the plate. Some games like PRS have a very, very small type of target that you need to engage, think KYLs and such. But typically, you're able to adjust on a larger target before you take a whack at a smaller target. Obviously, there's exceptions here. I typically shoot field style matches like NRL and the Sniper Team Series more recently. So I am interested in quickly finding firing solutions in order to solve problems as fast as possible. So from the 0.75 that took me out to 840, I now go to 1 mil, 1.0. That'll take me from 860 down to 1,000. So let's check the math here. 0.9 is what it's calling for. If I hold 1.0 and I need 0.9, I'm likely still on plate. Taking it to 1,000. 1.1 is what it's calling for. If I hold 1.0, I'm likely still on plate. So this is the process. I've repeated it for 9 miles an hour as well as 12 miles an hour. And what you'll notice is as the wind goes up in mile per hour, your brackets will become increasingly smaller. So you can see 0.25 at 9 miles an hour only takes me out to 260 yards. And at 280, I need 0.5. Whereas at 6 miles an hour, it took me to 380, and I didn't click over to 0.5 until I got to 400. So these brackets, these zones, if you will become smaller the faster the wind blows. You can see at 12 miles an hour, I'm not even at 200 yards, and I already need 0.25. I'm probably somewhere in between 0.5 and 0.25 at that 200 yard mark. This is all 0.5. Then I click over to 0.75 at 360 yards rather than getting out to 460 like I had at 9 miles per hour. That 12-mile-an-hour bracket takes me to 480 and so on. And these brackets keep getting smaller and smaller as I go further and further and the wind increases. I hope that helps. I'm the DMs, the private message, Facebook, Instagram, all that are open. Hit me up with any questions. I love talking about this stuff, and I really do appreciate everybody's feedback. If you are confused, I want to talk to you. I'm happy to take a phone call. Whatever you need to do, man, I am here for you.